Today we are having a pet blessing service. And when Nick and I first began to discuss it, I was a little baffled as to how to proceed. With the virus and the violence and the social injustice and the toxic political climate, it seemed a stretch to me to focus on our connection with our pets and with nature at large. I know that I am personally experiencing more worry, grief, and anger than I have in a long time, and all at the same time. But that led me to think about my new little puppy and the animals in my past and how they relate to those strong emotions. Maisie brings me back to the present, the here and now. If you've had a puppy, you know this. She calms me, she makes me laugh, she lightens my heart. She brings love and joy into our home and provides a small oasis of pure and simple happiness. Being outside with her in the sunshine, enjoying the birds and the flowers and the breezes of summer while she eats grass, seems to ground me. I'm responsible for this little dog who comes on me. I look around, I realize that I have a responsibility to nature and this beautiful planet we live on. And that brings me to our current situation, where I am reminded that I am also responsible for holding out a hand to my fellow man and woman. Maisie helps connect me to the larger world in a kind and loving way. So, yes, let's bless the pets, the world, each other, and all the people out there who so desperately need blessings. I'd like to end with this quote from John Robbins. Humans are a part of the web of life. What we do to the planet, what we do to other species, what we do to other people, we end up doing to ourselves. And God said, let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the dome of the sky. So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves of every kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters in the seas and let birds multiply on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning the fifth day. And God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and things, wild of every kind. And it was so. God made the wild animals of the earth of every kind, and the cattle of every kind, and everything that creeps upon the ground of every kind. And God saw that it was good. And then God said, let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth.
What it means to have a pet is to love someone who speaks a language you do not. A dog will bow and prance, a cat will purr and blink, a guinea pig will giggle and squeak. A long time ago, a friend of mine had a dog with soft ears and considered herself the pup's guardian, a gentle way to think of protecting and caring for a friend, such a small gesture of respect for a source of boundless love. The dog's long pink tongue lolling in a goofy grin. The cat convinced that kneading and grooming are crucial to this day. A bird asking for a treat, bending a wing to wave. These are friends. They are loves. It's kind of a surprise that you should love someone so much who would eat the butter on the table if they could get away with it, and gets endless hair on the sofa when they aren't even supposed to be on the furniture. when they are called companion animals, it's such an open, tender truth. The endless cuddles and tricks and loyalty, the comfort of fingers to fur and big, adoring eyes. These are friends. They are loves. They stretch our hearts and fill them with their abundance of kindness. When they are gone, our hearts remain larger, though their absence leaves room for expanses of grief. Their love champions and companions us still. During this month of June at UUCCI, we are practicing an important aspect of our personal and collective lives, celebration. Each year, we set aside time in June to celebrate all that must be celebrated, honoring where we have come from, where we have gone this year separately and together, and where we will surely travel in the year to come. 2 weeks ago, we celebrated Lifespan Sunday and listened to some of the wisdom from our children, youth, and families about life during the coronavirus. We celebrated all of our learning and growing this year and thanked our volunteers for their commitment to lifespan learning at UUCCI. Last week, we celebrated our continued commitment to courage and to our commitment to resisting white supremacy and dismantling white supremacy culture and all forms of oppression. We honored the Unitarian tradition of the flower ceremony, and individuals were invited to bring and receive flowers, a symbol of our unique beauty and fragility, and of the need to fight for all of humanity. Next week, we will join 1,000 of our sibling congregations from around the country and throughout the world as we attend the General Assembly Sunday morning service, which is not to be missed. Seriously, mark your calendars. In doing so, we will be reminded or perhaps experience for the first time our wider connections with other Unitarian Universalists from around the world. This, too, is something worthy of celebrating in June. Which brings us to today, to this third Sunday of the month in which we celebrate our pets? Did I get that right? All animals of the land, sky, and sea? Well, you may be in the same boat with Pam Lee or a couple others I spoke to about this service and the potential dissonance or even frivolity we might be feeling about its theme with all that is unfolding in our society during these past few weeks and months. I mean, lifespan learning, yeah, that makes sense. At the end of a program year of ministry together, or defeating Nazis and ripping white linen cloths, yeah, that feels celebratory and worthy of our time. Connection with our wider association to be reminded of our shared values, yeah, that's a solid use of a Sunday morning, but pets? Really? How cute could Pam and Tom's new dog possibly be? Well, the answer is really cute, but that is not why we are marking this tradition of celebrating Pet Sunday or Animal Blessing Sunday each year at UUCCI. The larger reason for its perennial place in this month of celebration is that there is a tremendous amount of wisdom and transformation available to us when we dive beneath the surface of cuteness and meows and woof woofs. Something deeper resides there, and today and every year I would like an opportunity to reflect on it in relation to the current world in which we live. So today I want to focus my reflection on the blessings of animals, pets included, and the way that through these relationships we can overthrow the white supremacist infatuation with domination. Domination, or more specifically, Dominionism, has existed across millennia and in many particular cultural and religious traditions. But its systemic infection in people around the world, and especially in the West, is due to a conservative theopolitical interpretation of the first book of the Hebrew Bible. In the book of Genesis, chapter 1, as we are all perhaps aware, the story goes that after everything in the world was created, God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." Now this single verse, verse 26 from the first chapter of the book of Genesis, is such a potent and consequential piece of scripture that would influence not only the religious life, but the social and political realms of humankind for millennia up to this very day. Two arguments are made in this single verse, both of which are worthy of sermons and books till the cows come home. The first is the biblical support of imago Dei, or the belief that humans are made in the image of God. This is significant since it elevates humans into perhaps not deification, into being gods, although that might emerge later in a different section of the Bible. But it did elevate humans clearly above the rest of creation or existence in this particular mythological story of the universe. Thus, it empowers humans to be godlike in their nature and actions in life. Well, the second part of this consequential verse that immediately follows the claim of imago Dei reads, "And let them have dominion over this and that and this and that, and pretty much everything under the sun and moon and stars. Let them have dominion over." So the alignment of these two theological claims shape the anthropological understanding of the human. What is the human, and what is its purpose in life? Its purpose is to have dominion in the likeness of God over all of creation. Here is where the situation gets messy. What does it mean to have dominion over all of life? This is where the deviations and disagreements for the following few thousand years have created irreparable harm, perhaps, and perhaps schisms within humanity and between humanity and the rest of existence. While I don't want to reduce this debate to simply two schools of thought, I will seek to keep it simple by suggesting, in general, there were two camps of interpretation of what it means to have dominion. And I'll be using the concept of power as defined by the Reverend Dr. Mark Lee Robinson to help me explain my thinking. In his 2009 book, Just Conflict: Transformation Through Resolution, Robinson outlines 4 types of power that exist within life and within situations of conflict. And we're going to talk about 2 of them. The first form of power could be classified as power over, Robinson writes, most of what we think of as power is power over. Parents have the power to tell their children when curfew will be. Bosses tell their employees what the quota will be. Police tell drivers when to pull over. Judges tell them what the fine will be. Even the power that the chair under me has is power over. It has power over my body to keep it upright and in position to type these words. Everyone and everything has power over. The challenge, of course, is when that power over is taken to an extreme. And this is where our first school of thought emerges: Dominionism. Dominionism is a religious movement that has taken different forms and names at different times in the past 2,000 years. Dominionism and dominion theology takes the charge in Genesis 1, verse 26, as a charge to not only subdue the world, but promote a uniform understanding of existence by any means necessary. Thus, we have the emergence of the Crusades, the conquistadors, the colonization of the Americas and Africa and the South Pacific, white nationalist ideologies, and so on. There was a justification for conflict through the belief that power over was necessary to create the world that many felt God charged them to create. Some today mask this as democracy, and the wars in the Middle East or back in the day Vietnam, these might be examples as a result of a fear that the dominant values of the white Christian world were being lost. But dominionism and a philosophy of domination didn't just pop up overnight. It gradually was a process of wielding power over the earth through different means, slowly, and then more largely in scope. In Pope Francis's 2015 encyclical, Laudato Si, my Italian or Latin is horrible, he rebukes and laments the conservative and consequential interpretation of Genesis 1. In chapter 67 of his encyclical, Pope Francis writes the following: "The basis of the Genesis account, which grants humankind dominion over the earth, has encouraged the unbridled exploitation of nature by painting him as domineering, God, as domineering and destructive by nature." Pope Francis goes on to say that, quote, "Although it is true that that we Christians, speaking to Christians, have at times incorrectly interpreted the scriptures, nowadays we must forcefully reject the notion that our being created in God's image and given dominion over the earth justifies absolute domination over other creatures. The biblical texts are to be read in their context," he says, "with an appropriate hermeneutic or focus of study, recognizing that they tell us to, quote, till and keep the garden of the world." Pope Francis says that tilling refers to cultivating, plowing, or working, while keeping means caring, protecting, overseeing, preserving. This implies a relationship of mutual responsibility between human beings and nature. Okay. Now, we as Unitarian Universalists are not a Christian congregation. We are not bound by Catholic teaching or even biblical wisdom. Some of us might be, some of us might identify as Christian, but as a collective at UUCCI, we are not Christian. But here's the thing. Misinterpretations of the first chapter of Genesis have influenced and still influences our systems, all of our systems of everything from foreign policy to religious freedom to human rights and to animal rights. And so we are not immune. We as Unitarian Universalists, our congregation, our society, is not immune from the alluring theopolitical intoxication that a philosophy of domination and colonialism, of capitalism and policing, of systemic racism, or any system that emphasizes power over provides to us. Just like Dominionism didn't pop up overnight, so didn't the Pope's encyclical spring up out of nowhere. Laudato Si is a reference to another Francis, although this one is a saint who lived 800 years prior. St. Francis of Assisi composed a song entitled The Canticle of the Sun, in which a recurring line throughout is Laudato Si. Laudato Si means praised be you, and the song is a love song to God and to creation. Francis of Assisi received sainthood in part due to his deep care for animals and the earth. He was known for caring for all his siblings, whether they were human like him or they flew in the sky or swam in the sea. And he understood how important the treatment of animals was to the human life. In another writing, St. Francis made an argument about the slippery slope that exists when we do not care for all of life. He argued, quote, if you have men, and apologies for the gendered language, if you have men who will exclude any of God's creatures from the shelter of compassion and pity, you will have men who will deal likewise with their fellow men. Thus we have the evolution, or should I say, the degradation of thought, of humanity, that said through our domination of animals or trees that could be cut down, beat down without much worry of retaliation or consequence, an extension of this subjugation could extend to all of the earth, even fellow human beings who are also made in the image of God. It is my belief that St. Francis's understanding of his relationship to all of life was a promotion of a different type of power. Returning to the writings of Robinson, he suggests, quote, there is another form of power which is less common but more powerful than power over. It is power with. Power with is constructed by an agreement in which all parties decide to act in ways that construct the welfare of all. He concludes, we have decided how we are going to be with each other in a manner that serves all of us. Well, this sounds a bit more like Unitarian Universalism and our value of covenant, or the promises we make with one another of how we will be with one another. It also reminds me of our seventh principle, which promotes the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. I remember about a decade ago, I preached a sermon in which I reflected on the seventh principle. And I said, and what I said then still holds true today, I really appreciate not only the affirmation of our interdependence with all existence, but that we humans are located in a very humbling place in this web of existence. We are not at the center of the web of existence. We are not even saying that we are in an important part of the web of existence. We say that we are merely a part of the web of existence. And though we have tremendous power to force ourselves to the center, we are invited to imagine sharing the center or de-centering the image of a circle and moving fully into a multi-sided, non-symmetrical web that likely is more reflective of the universe itself. Pet Sunday is not a superficial celebration, my friends, but a meaningful reminder of our place within this web of existence and a charge to reflect on the blessings animals bring to our lives. This year, I am thinking of how our relationships with them often shape how we treat or think of all existence. The illusion of control, the infatuation with domination, these things challenge us as Unitarian Universalists to expand our circle, our web of compassion and love. There are so many blessings animals bring to our lives. My friend and colleague, the Reverend Teresa Soto, believes that to have animals in your life is to embrace empathy for the other. In the reading today, Reverend Soto writes, "What it means to have a pet is to love someone who speaks a language you do not." What a powerful truth and challenge to love one who you cannot fully understand, yet still feel compassion for. She concludes with these words, "These are friends, they are loves. They stretch our hearts and fill them with their abundance of kindness. When they are gone, our hearts remain larger, though their absence leaves room for expanses of grief. Their love champions and companions us all." My friends, our furry friends, our scaly friends, our feathery friends, they are reminders of our purpose in this life, to companion with one another, to be champions for love and justice, to not merely coexist together, but thrive together on this earth. May our interdependence with all of existence be something we celebrate this day. May it expand our hearts and keep us open to compassion, to vulnerability, to loss, and to courage to carry on, to fight for what we love. May we choose to wield the power we have wisely, and together may we cultivate that world that would bring St. Francis much joy to see it. May it be so. May it be ours to make so. And amen.